So, Joy, have you ever been to a Turkish prison? Do you like gladiator movies? By the way, is there anyone listening who knows how to fly a plane? Well, looks like I picked the wrong day to give up Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. That and sniffing glue. Not that there's a difference.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you an important announcement. Thrive Loud is officially the best podcast ever. And Lou Diamond is still bald. That is all.
Get ready to Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond, and today on Thrive Loud, we have for you a mental fitness coach, speaker, writer, and athlete. She is a professional bodybuilder and is certified in nutritional psychology. She has connected all the dots between the training process and personal development of her life outside of the gym, and has filled a niche between psychotherapy and life coaching by developing a mental fitness coaching program called Diamond Mind Strategies. I like that name. That has been utilized nationally for those striving for the true mind-body optimization. She's a contributor to CNBC and many other online and on-air publications. She's a diamond, so we had to have her on. Thrive Loud fans, Ava Diamond. Ava, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Lou?
I am spectacular because I met you recently and was floored, not only because you are an amazing, impressive person with confidence and a great philosophy on everything, but you also have the coolest last name ever. So we just hung out and we were trying to figure out if we were related, which we're really not, but that's okay. Well, we're still like, brother, sister anyway. So I wanted the Thrive Loud fans to learn from you because you've got a very cool story, a great way of thinking about things. And I think our listeners would love to hear about your whole philosophy and Diamond Mind Strategies because I think it's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you. And, I mentioned to you when we met that people have been asking me for a long time, are you related to Lou Diamond? And then in the flesh, there you were. So now I can at least say that I know you.
Two master connectors being brought together, the forces of the universe working their magic.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway. So you're speaking.
But you know what? The master connecting thing actually is part of the mindset work that I do. And it's a great little segue into talking about what I do and how it actually helps people to expand their world and create the both professional and personal environment that they need to thrive, to use that word intentionally.
Yeah. So I guess I'm always interested in this because people go through different roads throughout their career. How did this whole philosophy get started?
Okay, so I want to give you the mini version because
Sure.
Otherwise this won't be a single segment of your show. But basically, in a nutshell, professionally, I'm going to back it up even more than that just for a second. Growing up, I went from the very, very shy, awkward. Apparently, I was a pretty bright kid who didn't fit in with second grade. So in second grade, I was put into sixth grade. But I had no social life consequently. And I made a conscious choice without knowing about mentorship. I made a conscious choice when I was in middle school to find the most outgoing girl I could to learn from her. And I did this, in hindsight, I can realize what I did. But I remember looking for that and then transforming. That was my first experience with what eventually became Diamond Mind Strategies concepts of learning how to discover and fuel yourself with parts of yourself that may not have been as dominant, but still were there waiting for you to nurture them and allow them to come to the forefront. So fast forward, I became the social butterfly that no longer stayed attached to her cognitive capacity. And I wound up at the bottom of my high school class. Thank you very much. But I was really good at throwing stellar parties.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So I had to prove myself and prove myself to my parents as well that I could actually do the college thing, and eventually wound up back after undergrad at USC and graduate school at Columbia. I think that I demonstrated to them that I could handle it. I
was going to say, you worked yourself back nicely. So
yeah, I did all right. That said, I wound up, fast forwarding again to being very devoted to my role as mom. I had 3 babies in 4 years, and consequently, I wound up in what I call now and talk about with women all the time. I wound up in diaper darkness. And so I would talk about emerging from diaper darkness with women who have lost themselves to that very precious and important role, motherhood. And I had one of those light bulb moments at around 38. It was exactly 38 years old. And I realized that I had been dormant for 10 years, parts of myself, just gone away or buried beneath all the different tasks. So I exited my marriage, which was empty, and I reclaimed myself. And over the next 10 years, I was the gym rat, and I was still very devoted to being a mom, but I was also back in my career and my entrepreneurial way of developing it. And here comes the punchline. Ready? 47 years old, I wound up taking my hobby to the next level. I engaged in competitive fitness, and because I'd always looked the part, I actually won my first show. And within the first year, at 47 years old, I became a pro in the fitness arena. And that opened up many, many doors to how I was thinking about my career as a psychotherapist, which I'd been doing for 20 years. And I started to hone a niche because the coaching world was thriving. There's that word again. Mm-hmm. But many of the coaches out there, and this is not to discredit people so much as to just it's just a fact that people would earn a coaching certificate after going to 3 weeks of Tony Robbins and then wind up being involved in people's lives in ways they really weren't equipped to handle. Right. And so I offered, I had the ability to handle the really hard stuff. And then I developed this program that was easy to package, strategic and practical, and people could relate to it very easily. And it didn't, people didn't want to dive deep into therapy all the time. And so it took off. And it took off mostly with people who were in very high pressured positions. And the way I am able to network, as we talked about earlier, and kind of use that entrepreneurial mindset in the health and wellness space, I wound up getting some nice attention on LinkedIn and other places, and contracts with the military, and teaching my program at Yale Med School, and all kinds of cool stuff happened.
Which, by the way, makes sense for the Thrive Lab listeners need to know this. I think when it comes to the definition of sound mind and sound body, this is what you embody, literally. If that word is used twice, I apologize to my English teacher. So it's an interesting thing, because I think you truly represent physically what you are. But I think the real story, though, is it's the mindset that you've achieved and what you preach and coach and speak about. That's actually, I guess, the secret sauce of all of it. It's like truly owning what you deliver. So I guess talk about the things that are perceived well about you, and the things that people question as you sit down and come to deliver your message as the vehicle from it. I would love to hear that.
Sure. So the first thing I've had to do is to figure out how to actually convey the message of what I do in a succinct manner. The elevator pitch per se, because the first question I always get is, well, what is mental fitness? What is nutritional psychology? I don't get it. So I'm fortunate to know some really super bright people, and they always help me through conversation to hone that message. And for me, I've latched on to telling people that basically I'm a brain optimizer. So what that means is through my mental fitness and nutritional psychology coaching, and mental fitness are mindset exercises, because people really underestimate how much they can work that brain. They underestimate how much they can protect it and care for it and allow it to stay healthy, strong, and serve you the way it's supposed to, simply by exercising it and providing it with the nourishment it needs to be balanced.
Hey there! If you're enjoying how Lou is connecting with this guest in this interview, then just imagine how impactful he can be in person. As an international speaker and consultant, Lou Diamond is all about getting organizations to thrive through the power of connecting. To learn more about how you can hire Lou to speak at your company, your conference, or your next event, head on over to loudiamond.net and click the Book Lou button to learn more. He'll truly get everyone to thrive loud. All right, let's get back to the show.
So let's give some examples here. Share with the listeners some of the things, and you don't have to give away the whole kit and caboodle here, but I would love to hear a little bit of some of the strategies that you deploy in Diamond Mind Strategy.
Okay, cool. So for example, the first thing I do with any individual client, and even in my group programming, my workshops, because they're very interactive, is I have people make this list of what I call their internal resources. And internal resources are why am I blocking this word? Internal resources comprise your, what I call core power. So okay. Core power, internal resources. So what you're going to look at is your values, intentions, beliefs, personality traits, skills, information that you have that serve you today. Because we all have them. We all have these internal resources that we tend to, if we can be attached to them and use them, bring them to the forefront, bring them into every room we walk through, door we walk through, into every room we're in, then we have a new level of confidence and clarity about who we are and what we can offer. And you do that in a humble way, of course, because you might have all these things, but there are certainly going to be things that you don't have, and people that you need that can complement. So I have people generate this list of what their core power elements, their internal resources are, because we forget. And then what I have them do is develop their personal mission statement. So these are the first two things that people always do when they work with me. And you know what a company mission statement is, right?
Mm-hmm. It's the thing that most people read and laugh at usually most of the time. No, I'm kidding.
Right. So, and you know what? So I know people know what a company mission statement is, but I'm going to say it out loud because it's different when you think of it in this particular way. Anytime a person walks through a door who works for a company, no matter what's going on in their home life or on their way to work that day, or whether their hormones are out of whack or whatever, when they walk through that door, every single person is aligned by that one mission statement. Right.
Yep.
So, if the company's done a good job of engaging their employees, the same thing is true with a personal mission statement. When you create a powerful personal mission statement, it serves as a mechanism for aligning your intentions with your actions, no matter what else is going on outside of yourself and in your world. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And I guess I'm gonna go in a direction here, which I think will be really good. Whether it's the workshops you lead at companies or the individuals you work with, is there one common distraction, I guess, or people that aren't walking that line? Is there one common theme that you're seeing more often than not today that you seem to be helping most people to kind of get back on track? I know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What would that be?
So there's this thing called stress.
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's two different kinds of stress, and people have become kind of oblivious to the fact that they're walking around with a condition of chronic stress, which I call stress brain. So chronic stress happens when you go to work, maybe you have stress at work. Well, and if you go home and you don't have stress at home, it's not chronic stress brain, because you have a chance to decompress, you have, fun, and you have relaxation, and you have all these things that bring your cortisol levels down. And this is the nutritional psychology component of my program too. But most people wind up having stress outside of work as well, whether it's physical or social or in their relationships, in their family life, right? And financial stress seems to be permeating, all of those realms of life too. So most people are walking around with a level of stress that they don't even realize that life can be different if they addressed it. And the chronic stress does the following. It absolutely impedes your cognitive functioning. So your memory declines, your creativity diminishes, your energy depletes, because the brain, basically, the way to understand it is that when you're walking around with chronic stress, your brain is like your phone in airplane mode.
Great example.
Yeah. So in airplane mode, what happens?
You can't use the internet.
Right, exactly. You cut back on stimulation.
Right.
You don't let things in. And you're limited with what you can let out. So when your brain's in airplane mode, it's doing the same thing. It's preserving itself until you can get refueled, until you can get hooked up to the source to rejuvenate your battery, So when you're in airplane mode, you can't process more or even enough to do your job right, or to be your best in your role at home, etc.
Are you a big fan of, in helping when that brain can't take anything out and it's in that mode? Are you a big fan of doing meditation or doing other things to help you kind of find ways to relax?
I'm so glad that you asked that question. And here's why. I just wrote about this in an article in CNBC in the money section, actually.
Which is literally right in front of me right now. I was leading to
really?
it. But yes, because it's a really good article. So keep going. Yes. I apologize for interrupting.
So I have two pet peeves in my professional life. One is when I'm supervising or training a therapist and they say to me that they're working with somebody depressed, and I ask them what they're doing with that person. They say, well, I'm telling them to think happy thoughts. And I look at it, I'm like, really? And they're paying you for that? Because if they could do that, they most certainly would. And so the therapist is not starting at the starting block, which is also what happens with so many wellness coaches, for example, or things people read online or wherever they're getting their information about it, how to take care of themselves. You're not starting at the starting block. So telling people, well, what you have to do is meditate or exercise or go on a diet. Most people know that those things are good for you. And the idea of adding something new to their lives is stressful. So when you're already in a very stressed out life, you got to start where you need to start, which is not, okay, let me add something new to my life, which creates more stress because I don't know how I'm going to do it and I'm going to set myself up for failure, etc. You start with, what are the practical things I can do right now, given that my life feels overwhelming, so that I reduce the stress levels in my brain and create the space that I need to add something new in my life.
That is first of all, I want to comment because that is phenomenal advice. And I think in this world of with so much data out there and information of things to do, I don't care if it's a diet, a way to meditate, a new workout plan, whatever it might be, all of these different things in the world, it's along the lines of, look, you have to do what's best for you. However, to your point, if you're already doing so much, like you said, you feel like there's pressure to add it. I got upset. I tried to do meditation and I was upset that I could only get to like 8 minutes, which a lot of people said, that's amazing. And I remembered feeling bad. Wow, I can't do 20 minutes. I can't do this. And I never thought about the fact that I actually was stressing about it. I did read your article, 5 Ways to Control Your Stress During a Volatile Market. It was definitely geared more to the financial community, but everything can be related from it. And I thought it was such a cool point about the ways that you think about managing stress. And I liked how you balance it also about how you eat, how you live.
Yeah. So what my mental fitness exercises are really about providing people with these 90-second practices that they can do anywhere as long as they rehearse it enough to lower the cortisol levels in their brain just enough so that they don't have the chronic buildup, right? And that's where, in terms of mental fitness, that's where you start to create that space we were just talking about so that you can adopt perhaps a little bit more of a healthy lifestyle by treating your chronic stress first. So nutritionally, you can do the same thing. What happens when people are really stressed out with eating? What happens for you when you're stressed out with food? Lou?
Me personally,
yeah.
I don't think I'd be a good example on this because I'm pretty even keeled as it comes to food, but I don't get.
Okay, how about somebody you know? Anybody you live with?
I know people that will. It's kind of like they'll go on extremes. They won't eat a lot if they're really stressed in certain pieces, or they'll forget to eat. That's one that's really interesting. Or they'll just go on like a binge or something like that of a certain type of food, whatever it might be.
Right. So usually when people are stressed out, they have cravings for carbohydrates and sugars because those are the quick fixes for your brain chemistry to produce, fast, the hormones that you want.
Right.
Oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine, all those feel-good chemicals. The problem is that your blood sugar, when it goes up and down like that, when you choose either you forget to eat, like you said, or you don't have the stomach for eating because you're so stressed out and hours go by. And then when you eat something, you choose the feel-good foods. What you're doing is you're creating spikes in your blood sugar. And really, that's what causes your hormones to be imbalanced. And hormones, hormones are not just about your, menstrual cycle and sex life. Hormones are about how you feel with anxiety, depression, etc. So the goal with nutritional psychology, one of the primary goals is to have level blood sugar so that you don't have that deprivation and then spiking. And by doing that, you can control your moods, you can, level your anxiety and depression, but you can also fuel your focus and your energy very well throughout the day.
I like it. Ava, I want to ask this question because it's a standard question that I ask just about every guest that comes on the show, but this is one I'm interested in hearing because this is what you focus on every day. When you, Ava Diamond, have trouble thriving, who or what practice do you seek to get yourself back on the thriving track? An off day, a bad day, whatever it might be, whether it's physical or mental. I'm curious to know what you do.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think you like saying my whole name.
Yeah, of course I do. Absolutely.
Okay, Lou Diamond. So I'm glad you asked that also because people need to know that when they're looking for a coach of any kind, you want to make sure that that coach actually practices what they preach. Because just like many doctors out there who are unhealthy, even though they're helping other people be healthy, the same thing is true with coaches. They may know what to do, but they don't do it themselves. And it's very different. It's very different when somebody actually practices what they're asking you to do, which is why parenting, when I work with people who are trying to parent better, the first thing we do is look at how they're acting, not what they're saying to their kids, and we tweak that a bit.
Right.
So and just because you're kind of, quote unquote, an expert in managing stress, for example, that doesn't mean that you can keep stress from coming into your life. And I assure you, I have my share. So I always do what I am having my clients or my children do to manage their own stress first and foremost. But then I always remember that there are people out there who know a lot more than I do and have amazing lives. And I try to add, when things get really tough, I try to add at least one new thing to my repertoire. And I look at the people who I admire most and say, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And that's how I continue to grow myself. I have very interesting story about what happened recently with that. I don't know if you want me to freak people out with the spiritual thing, but
go ahead. But we want to know what it is that you seek to. So what freaked you out?
It didn't freak me out in a bad way. It was just kind of, really powerful and cool. So, to be very specific, recently I had a couple of big stressors, and I made a conscious decision one morning that I realized my energy was depleted and I needed to use the day to preserve myself, to rejuvenate and then protect my only greatest resource, which is my energy level that I bring to everything that I do. And when I say energy, I don't mean just like intensity. I mean the vibe, right?
I got it.
Yeah. So a few weeks back, one morning, dealing with these big stressors, I made that decision, and I actually texted a very close friend of mine who I also admire professionally. And I said, so didn't you work with a spiritual healer over the last couple of years? And she said, absolutely. And she gave me the name. She goes, but she's really expensive. Great though. And so I started to think about what's that one thing that I haven't done in my life? And it was expanding even though I have a very strong spiritual sense, it was diving into that world of, how people talk about life through that spiritual lens. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So I put that out to my friend, and then I got on the phone with another colleague of mine who I've supervised a bit as a therapist, knowing that personally she was very into spiritual healing type stuff. I knew she knew the lingo. And anytime we're trying to trying to grow, one of the first things I always recommend is to try new language to describe your situation, because you'll gain a new perspective that'll give you opportunity to expand how you're going to handle it. Because as we know, language shapes our perception. And so I got on the phone with her, and I just wanted to hear how she would understand the different things that were happening. And sure enough, the words she used from her spiritual backdrop, they resonated with me because, first of all, they validated what I was already thinking using my language. But then again, they offered me new words to consider, which at the moment felt very grounding, and then also empowering, because I could just think about it from a slightly different angle, So I'm on the phone with her, and we're talking for about 45 minutes, and the phone rings, and I think it's this person I have to talk to regarding one of the stressful situations. And I get off. I say, I have to take that call. This has been so helpful. And on the other end was, in fact, not someone related to those issues, but someone who identified herself as a spiritual healer. So
we need to play the music from the Twilight Zone at this particular point.
Yeah, I think, right. So she was introduced by email to and a mutual friend the day before, and she said, I don't normally do this. I normally, and she was introduced because she's a publicist, really professionally. She said, I don't normally do this, but when I saw your website, instead of just emailing saying, let's set up a time to talk, she said, I felt very compelled that I was supposed to call you for some reason. And I don't ignore those things when I get those very strong feelings, because in the other part of my life, I'm a spiritual healer.
Pretty crazy. I think it's all coming full circle now, Ava. So,
Yes. And then the things that transpired after that included meeting Lou Diamond.
And which brings us fully back in a full circle.
Right.
Well, by the way, thank you for sharing. And it's good. I think what's really key about all this is that you have lots of different ways that you can deal with stress, and whether physical, mental, or all different ways to explore it. But I like what you said. It's like, how can you continue to make yourself better and figuring out what to add into your repertoire, which I know is challenging because you have to be in that de-stress state, because one of the things you said earlier was, you don't want to add too much onto your plate, but when you're ready for that growth, I think that's pretty cool and pretty eye-opening.
Well, and to go back to that just for a really quick second, I always say people invest more in protecting their smartphones than their smart brains. If you think about it,
yep.
And then on top of that, we also value our technology so much, right? We feel at a loss when we're not attached to it. And yet what we don't recognize is that we can be detached from our own brains and what that would really mean, right? Yep. And people joke about it all the time, like without my GPS, I'd get lost kind of thing. The language that we use is like our keyboard on our laptop. And whatever we put into our laptop, we're going to get out of it, right? So even if we're very chronically stressed, it's not hard to explore words that we don't normally use, to think of, to use new language to describe our conditions so that we can see it from a new perspective and then create room for maneuvering through it in new ways.
I like it. Ava, if you could share with the Thrive Loud fans all the places people can find you, websites, links, social media, any competitions you have coming up, anything of that nature, this is the time to share it.
Okay, very cool. So I'll just say that in regard to the last question, I'll be turning 55 in February, and I have always thought that it's kind of cool if I can compete one more time at 55, I'll do it. I can't promise that I'm going to do it because life, has its way of changing those plans, but there's a possibility.
All right, good, cool.
So you can find me at my website, www.avadiamondmentalfitness.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, where I post a lot of articles and different podcasts, and there's a lot of information you can get about mental fitness and nutritional psychology coaching and, who I am from LinkedIn. But also I'm growing my Instagram account, Ava Diamond, and my Facebook is pretty tapped out, but email me at ava@avadiamondmentalfitness.com. Happy to answer any questions.
This has been spectacular. Ava Diamond, I'm curious to see where this goes. Your all-time favorite movie?
So it'll be a chick flick. It's Eat, Pray, Love, and there's a few reasons why I like it. But anybody who knows the movie, it just, every time I watch it, it makes me cry, and crying is good. But also the house in the movie used in Bali belongs to a friend of mine. So I think.
Oh, that's really cool. That's awesome. It's actually, that's now the second time that people had a connection to a movie because of a geography. If I remember correctly, Sylvie DeGiusto, who's the president of the New York City.
I know who she is. Yeah.
Very well. The movie Good Year, which was a good story with Russell Crowe and someone else who I can't think of right now. Albert Finney was in the movie, and they used an old French vineyard that was vineyard as the main place. That was the topic of the entire conversation, and I believe that was Sylvie's family estate. It was a family.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like a grandparent or grandfather's. Yeah, but that was pretty cool. But still, that's awesome now. Pretty cool.
Yeah. And Sylvie, I got to meet at a very intimate networking dinner, and her whole concept of the first 7 seconds. Yep. That's what my mental fitness coaching helps with, that first 7 seconds when you walk into a room. So we had a lot to talk about.
That is spectacular. Ava Diamond. Ava Diamond in the rough. I was going to do that, but I get Lou Diamond in the rough all the time. But just to have an Ava Diamond on the show makes it a lot of fun. So,
can't we just say now we're double diamond?
Double diamond. It's like a really difficult ski slope. We just went from the top all the way to the bottom, got through all the moguls, and thank you so much for coming on the program today.
Thank you, Lou.
And to all the Thrive Loud listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.